Hi, I'm Nora Armani, and this is our, I lost count already, fourth or fifth, I can't remember anymore, Meet the Filmmakers sessions in which we meet and talk with the filmmakers that are in the official selection of SRFF 2023, our 10th annual edition of the festival. It's already been 10 years, and it's hard for me to even say that because when we first started the festival, everybody was saying, wow, that's a great idea, cool, social issue oriented films, and so on, exclusively to see about people's lives and everything. Well, since we did that, there are so many film festivals now that focus on social issues. Before, it used to be that there were festivals that were specific about one or another social issue, like, for example, the LGBTQ festival or environment or women or whatever. But our festival prides itself to cover all sorts of social issues. Also, let me tell you a little bit, since we have a bit of time today, how it works. In other words, we do not decide the themes every year. A lot of times I'm asked, what is the theme this year? Well, there is no particular theme that is decided beforehand. We first select the films that are submitted to us, which are from all over the world, and we check out, we weed out the films that would not kind of conform either to our guidelines because we are focusing on social issues and nonviolence and all that, or they may have problems with the production values, or the acting is not quite good, or whatever reason, those are eliminated. Then we focus on what remains and we choose the yes and maybe. So there are definite films that pop at you from the screen and you say, we definitely must show this. And then others that are thematically interesting, production values are good, but they're not necessarily popping out. And those are the films that we keep as reserve, thinking that, okay, if we have a program that comes together and there are certain areas that we are missing, a short film, for example, in a grouping and so on, then we go to our maybe folder. So I'm giving you all the secrets of the profession here. Um, and we focus on films that are submitted to us by filmmakers who want to tell socially relevant, social issue oriented, human interest stories. We don't go around the big festivals trying to see what is making a lot of noise or what is the most successful film and solicit those, because we feel those films have already their platform. Whereas what we need is to offer filmmakers whose films otherwise would not be seen the platform, that much needed platform, and the spotlight that needs to shine on their work. So there we go. This is in a nutshell what we do and who we are. And if you want more information, you can go to our website and you can also find about the team, the program, schedule, tickets, anything and everything you need to know about SRFF 2023, and even previous editions and booklets from previous editions. So without further ado, let me introduce to you the filmmakers today. We were supposed to have many more, but for some reason, we only have two, which is fine because we will get to know them better this way. Okay, so we have Charlotte and Karin with us. And we're going to go quickly, take turns, and then tell us about what your film is about and who you are and what your film is about. And then we'll go more in depth. Actually, maybe since you're both just two, we don't need to do the circle around. So you can just tell us about your film and how the idea came to you and how it developed. So maybe we'll start with Charlotte.
Sure, thank you. And thank you for this opportunity to talk about my film. So, my film is Asphalt, and I'm the director, and also I wrote it with the main character, who's the actor playing the main character, Michael. It's actually a bit difficult for me to tell very much about the story, as it has some major plot twists, but I'll do my best. Uh, Asphalt is a story about Lasse, who's a truck driver. And when I say truck driver, I don't just refer to his job, because it's a lifestyle to be a truck driver. And Lasse is like, I like to call him a cowboy of the roads. And this very particular day, he is driving his truck, and this young woman, Renee, jumps in front of his truck. And that event is going to change everything for both of them, as they spent the entire day together in this truck. So that's kind of the story. And the film is very much about how we see other people and how we sometimes tend to judge them a bit too early, maybe, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting way. I was worried that you would give away the plot because
No.
we don't want to do that so people can come and see it. But saying that both of their lives change, of course, the encounter triggers something in both of them. And the film is about that, basically. And let me add that it's a film from Denmark.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we haven't had a film from Denmark before, and we are so
Wow.
happy to do this. And I think it's a world premiere,
Yeah, it is.
isn't it? So
Yeah,
we
it's very.
encourage. Yeah. So we are very happy and proud to be presenting the world premiere of this film, which is very ingeniously made, I should say, because it's I don't want to say how many characters and what happens and so on, but it's really done with very frugal means, but the effect is very powerful because it's all in the acting and how you directed it and how you found your actors, which I'm going to come to a little later. So Karin, how about you?
My film is a feature documentary called The Renegade Legacy of Bleecker and McDougal. Bleecker and McDougal are two streets in Greenwich Village where there used to be a lot of radical cafes. And in this documentary, we look at the beat poets and radical songwriters and activists who gathered in these cafes after World War II, and they were fighting against the very strict conformity of America at that time and needed to have a voice. So they gathered at these cafes, wrote poetry, did songwriting, and combined artistic expression with radicalism. And in some ways, then went out. What they did from those cafes went all across America and actually helped to change the culture of our nation. Although in the beginning, they were castigated and in some ways they were outlawed even, but we owe them a great gift for what they did at that time. So after World War II in America, people were coming back from the war and they were coming back to what they thought would be peace. As Pete Seeger in our film says, this was the time they thought they would have peace, but they came back to so much injustice. They couldn't believe what was going on. They started writing songs about peace and justice and were blacklisted for it. It was seen as anti-American and communist, and the government wanted to put them down. But today, some of that is seen as really groundbreaking. So I wanted to film some of this history, but I didn't want it just to be a historic film. I began over time running into all these young people who were influenced by the poet Allen Ginsberg and the radical songwriter Bob Dylan. and they were trying to follow in their footsteps. So I took some of these young poets and folk singers and I weaved their stories into the narrative of the film. And as our film progresses, starts out kind of quiet with nonconformists gathering in Greenwich Village cafes and then writing poetry and then bringing in folk music and then going out into the world and singing this folk music, fighting against the Vietnam War, fighting for civil rights. And then the film moves into the final chapter of young people today who are marching in Black Lives Matter and climate marches and for women's rights and things like that. So that is what the film is about.
That is so interesting because it ties in the old with the new. Like you say, if it were just a lecture in history, I mean, people can go to a history class or go to the library and pick up a book about this period and read about it. But what film and documentary film offers us the opportunity to do is to see how there are parallels between then and now, and how everything is interrelated in a way.
One of the things I really loved in the film is one of my young folk singers talks about the folk singer Woody Guthrie, who hopefully a lot of people know. And he really fought for labor workers and the common man and justice for workers. And that was in the 40s. And this young folk singer, he wrote a song about justice for labor workers who are working in the garment industry, specifically children. So 2 different time periods, more or less the same issue, and 2 different people using a simple folk guitar to get the story out. And in the case of the younger folk singer, you see them marching and singing. So yeah. I love that.
Very, very interesting, because we have our second section after the festival, the 3 days at Cinema Village. We go uptown from the 20th to the 23rd, and we go into our Rejoice, Resist section of the festival, which basically your film could have very easily fit in there as well.
Absolutely.
But the venues we are at don't have the capacity of, screening feature films that you have to sit down and focus for an hour and plus whatever. So we decided for the uptown section to focus on the short films. And they are all about BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and all the issues that you are talking about that young people today are concerned with: environment, Black Lives Matter, race and representation on screen, and all those issues. So on the 20th, we have a few films lined up at MRHS, which is Morningside Heights Morningside Health and Retirement and Health Services, and that is for people who prefer, or actually to help people age in their own environment and not to have to go to a nursing home because they have become frail and unable to take care of their daily needs. So what this organization does is sends them help and helps them take care of daily chores so that they are able to stay in their own environment. So this is the MRHS. And the next one on the same day, on the 20th, we go to Dear Mama, which is also in West Harlem. And there we show another group of films, mostly about Black Lives Matter, BIPOC films, about issues between the cultures and so on, which is followed by a panel discussion on diversity and representation on screen. Then we have a fun treat, a hip hop band, Division X, which will bring down the house, and we will be able to have some fun to crown the event. On the 21st and 22nd, we are at Columbia University Maison Française. And there also we have some fun programs and also happy hours with the filmmakers after that. And then we go to JCC Harlem with some jazz and the awards. And so it's like the uptown part is as fun as the downtown part. So we are uptown, downtown this year. So maybe I should ask you about the idea of this film. How did it come to you, Charlotte?
First of all, I wanted to say I love that phrase that you said, rejoice and resist.
Yes.
That encompasses so much. Yeah.
And I'll tell you where it comes from, because I didn't invent it. A couple of years ago, one of the films that had been presented to us was a beautiful music video about rejoicing your race, basically blackness. And there were Black women singing and dancing to this amazing music. And it's called Rejoice, Resist. That was the title. So when we got the idea of doing a focus on BIPOC films the same year, later in the summer, I asked their permission if it was okay, although titles are not copyrightable, as we all know, but still out of courtesy, I asked their permission, and they said, we would be delighted. Of course, you can use it. So the idea stuck. And this Rejoice, Resist BIPOC Films edition is our second one. We did one in August, September 2021. And this is the second one. And I think we're going to continue because it's a fun part and we want to be offering a platform specifically for BIPOC filmmakers. Mm-hmm. Yes. So how did the idea, Charlotte, how did you get this idea of your film? Was it something somebody told you or you experienced or you just imagine? Well, we can't talk very much without giving away plot, but still, yeah.
Yeah, I can tell a bit about it. Actually, it's some time ago, I was shooting another film, another feature with Michael, who's playing Lasse in Asphalt. And he just learned that my father used to be a truck driver. So he was talking a lot about making this action movie with a truck driver. And he had a lot of ideas. And I don't know, maybe just to kind of quiet him a bit or something, I said to him, don't worry, don't think about it, because I have like the perfect idea for this, and I will email you Monday. So he was quiet all day and we could continue shooting the other film. So only problem was that I didn't have any ideas at all. I had nothing. But I came up with an idea and emailed it to him, and he liked it. So that was when we started working together as writers. And well, it's all based on my own personal experiences. As I said, my father was a truck driver when I was younger, and both me and my brother have been sitting in the truck driving through Europe, and feeling that very claustrophobic space that you're in. Actually, most people don't know how a truck is inside, how it is inside a truck, but it's a lot bigger than a regular car. But at the same time, you're stuck there for a longer time, and it can get very claustrophobic. You can't run from the driver. You're just sitting there for days sometimes. So we like that idea for the film, and also we like, well, I think most when we talk about truck drivers, at least in Denmark, I don't know how it is in other countries, but we have some ideas about how truck drivers behave, and maybe we like to think about them in certain ways. And we thought that would be interesting to play a little with and try to maybe show how it really is inside. So that was what we were going
Yeah,
for.
very, very interesting because I'm letting Karin in. Karin is the filmmaker of a Canadian film we have in our selection this year, which is called Incorrigible. I'm not putting the entire title, Karin, because it's quite long, but we'll come to you. So, the interesting thing that I notice when we are talking to the filmmakers and when I ask this question about how the idea came to you, most of the time it's a very personal story. It springs from a personal, yesterday, day before yesterday, actually, we were talking about a film that takes place in prisons, and we were saying how stereotypical when you see Hollywood movies or any kind of movie, they pick a certain aspect of something. And when they focus on that, it becomes like, is this how it is? That, suddenly it influences people's opinion about prisoners. And we were saying that these prisoners, they were doing Shakespeare in prison. And the way we have been conditioned to know about what happens in prison, we are constantly facing situations where there's drugs and people are pulling knives on each other all the time, and things like that. So it's very important to show the flip side of the coin. Well, Karin unfortunately has very short time with us, so I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her film before we continue our conversation. So go ahead, Karin, and tell us a little bit about your film and what is it about.
This is wonderful, and thank you so much for selecting this film. And I'm a filmmaker from Canada, and my film is called Incorrigible. And basically, it's about a woman who was arrested by the police on her father's request, and then sentenced for a year in prison because she had a Chinese boyfriend. And in Canada, they have these laws that allowed our institution, our government institutions, to actually put women in jail to protect them from their own problems. So this story that I wanted to tell was through another friend who had met this woman who, at the age that I interviewed her, she was 96 years old, and almost 80 years after she was arrested, because this happened in like the early late 30s, and this was in Toronto, Ontario. So it was a big city, and that government, the provincial government, had the power to put a woman in jail if they felt that she was doing something wrong, or she was pregnant, or the things that you think about. Can If you had a boyfriend that your father didn't like, they could put you in jail for that. Can you imagine if that happened today? Absolutely not. But what's happening now is that women are still being subjected to, institutional kind of um, problems where they will not allow them to take control of their own destiny and their own bodies. So this story is about a woman named Delma Vemerson, and she was just an incredible inspiration, because even though she was put in jail and served 1 year in jail for having a Chinese boyfriend, she was also pregnant at the time as well. She fought back almost 60 years later and sued the government, and she won her case. So it's it's an inspirational story of a terrible thing that happened to this woman, and it's a cautionary tale for women today that face similar kinds of problems. And we're not just talking about North America. We're talking about Iran. We're talking about many other countries that are controlling women, and what they are allowed or not allowed to do, what they are allowed to show of their bodies, like their faces and so on. So that's my story of this particular woman, who is just a incredible
Yeah.
inspiration. for
It's
women today. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. And it struck our attention because we felt, oh my God, can this be true? I mean, yes, of course, cross race marriages, or we see people
Yes.
dating somebody, a white person, black person.
Mhm.
Okay, I mean, this is not the 50s or 60s anymore for eyebrows to be raised, and we are used to it now. But then to be imprisoned for that, it's like, oh my God. So we wanted to hear that story. And also, I want to take this opportunity to add that your film, because it's Canadian, we have a partnership with the Canadian Consulate General in New York and also Telefilm Canada, who have been supportive of the festival the past few years. And we have come up with the title Voices of Canada.
Nice.
So, and this is part of Voices of Canada series.
Excellent.
So, yeah, so we're very, very happy to have it. So, how did you meet the woman in the first place? How did the idea come to you? Was it a chance encounter?
No, actually, there was the person who produced it contacted me and wanted me to tell this story, being Chinese Canadian and a woman, to really put together some of the aspects of the interracial couple. Because we couldn't find the husband. He'd probably, her ex-husband had probably passed away already. He was a bit older than her. And he wanted to make sure that whoever made this story was going to really recount not only the problems around women and gender, but also around race and race relations. So that's
Yeah.
why I was asked to do that. And at first I said, no, I can't do it. I live in Vancouver. This is a Toronto story. But after I met her, I just thought, this woman has such an incredible story to tell, that I did that. I said, sure,
Yeah.
I'll I'll tell her story. And it's a little bit similar to other stories around First Nations women who had forced sterilization, and other women that had mental health problems in the early years that were also put into institutions. And you just can't fathom that this happened. So for me, it's really important. It's human rights. It's,
Yeah.
women's rights. And do we just stay silent? Well, what was so inspirational is this woman didn't stay silent, and she went after the government when she was 80 years old. Now,
Wow.
for me, I can't even, I can barely remember anything now. I can't imagine being so strong and strong-willed when I'm 80. So, for me, that was just, that was the clincher. After I met her, I just thought, she's got this great story. So I wanted to tell that story.
Yeah, and also if she still wanted to pursue this at age 80, it means that it had such a traumatic experience, or she was living with this PTSD all her life, that it needed to come out, it needed to be shared. So it's very, very interesting. And we have been very lucky to pair it off with a short film, which is called What Flowers They Something. It's completely What Flowers They Bloom. And
Right.
Calvin was supposed to be with us, but I don't know, he didn't for some reason. Very interesting. It's also an Asian story.
Hmm.
And how it relates is that it's a florist guy, and there is all this Asian discrimination going on. But
Right.
what happens is that the burger joint across the street puts an ad, and he says, whoever buys flowers from this guy will get a free burger.
Oh. Okay,
So
well, that's a perk.
It's an amazing, uplifting story about how community comes together
Yes.
to counteract racism and prejudice. So
Right.
I felt it's fantastic match together to
Excellent.
show that film, and then yours, and then the two show the Asian element and how the whole thing comes together. And both
Mhm.
Canadian films, they fall under the Voices of Canada uh,
Oh, very
title.
nice.
So we're gonna have a nice time on that
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Right. We have two more people here. Julia Newman is joining us, and Gary Sharfin. And yeah, so we've been talking a bit about the different films and how people got
Bye-bye. Sorry. I must leave.
inspired from their what the inspiration for the film was and how did they come about with the idea for that film. So maybe you want to tell us a little bit, Julia.
Okay.
Maybe you can introduce Gary because
This is Gary, an invaluable partner for 25 almost years. My interest in Einstein came when I was researching for my previous film about the American women in the Spanish Civil War, called Into the Fire. It was then that I found out that Einstein was a real firebrand of a political activist. I hadn't known that about him at all. He was very supportive of the Spanish Republic, very outspoken about it. And I thought I knew something about Einstein. I mean, he was this cute little elf, but that's not who he was at all. So I got Gary equally fired up about the possibility of making a film about Einstein, about the Einstein that people have no idea he was.
yeah.
So that was the origin.
Well, I'm going to say the entire title of the film because both names plus the title is too long to fit.
Right.
So it's called Still a Revolutionary, Albert Einstein.
And
So,
still a revolutionary is how Einstein described himself in his last years, that he was still a firebrand.
yeah, yeah. Very interesting and also very funny. There are such funny elements.
Oh, yeah.
It's always good to see funny things because people also tell us all the time, oh no, I don't want to come to your festival, it's so depressing because you're showing all these horrible films about terrible things that are happening around the world. And my response is, yes, we are dealing with heavy topics, but also we are careful to introduce a bit of an element of uplifting element. Like, for example, our opening night film, which is March 16 at the Lincoln Center, it's called Shabu, and it's about a 14-year-old teenager from Holland who wrecks his grandmother's car when she's away on holiday. And the grandmother assembles the entire family to say, hey, look what is happening. Somebody ruined my car. And then Shabu decides to pay her back and decides to do all sorts of odd jobs during the summer to put together the money and give it to her so she can repair her car. And he is a musician. So there is the music, there is this young kid, there is the family element. So it's really, really uplifting. And we make sure that, you know, the films talk about these topics, but also show us the light at the end of the tunnel. So maybe we'll go back to Charlotte and Karin and ask them if they wanted to add something in terms of the idea of the film and how long it took them from bringing it from idea to film.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe what were some of the difficulties you encountered, or was it just fun and games and roses and
Well, I just would add, you know, what I said a little while ago, this idea of rejoice and resist. And I really felt that about the historic people that I had filmed, like what joy they had going on these civil rights marches. And, you know, it was serious stuff, no question. But to bring that great music into it and to be creative, to form a community, you know, that was, and I said to someone once, first of all, there were a lot of problems making the film. I was dealing with historic material. I was dealing with contemporary material. I was doing most of it myself, all the shooting. I'd run and I'd film a demonstration, and then I'd come back home and try to get archival footage. And, like a lot of independent filmmaking, it was tough. But then when it came to an end, I said, what a privilege this has been to live with both these groups. What a privilege to have, obviously I didn't meet them, but to have read and heard and learned about Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac, and to interview Ronnie Gilbert of the Weavers and all these wonderful people, and then to go to these demonstrations. What a great privilege. Kind of made all the work, worth it.
Yeah,
until
that's how we feel with the film festival, because after all these sleepless nights and months of hard work and back and forth emails with the filmmakers, because sometimes I get all these questions from the filmmakers and I go, oh my God, I don't have time now, but I don't want to leave them unanswered. And that's why I find myself staying up until 3 a.m. answering some of these emails. Even sometimes it's a question that with a little bit of research, they could have found the answer. But I understand everybody's busy. Everybody's into 10,000 things. And then the icing on the cake or on the cherry on top of the icing is when I see these films, and they are such amazing learning experiences for me, because of the 10 years that I've founded this festival and I've been running it, it has been an amazing learning experience. I've learned so much about incredible topics, incredible people, incredible actors, incredible lives that I would have not had a chance to know about had it not been for the festival. So that is my reward. I don't get reward. Everybody's a volunteer, but at least we get a fringe benefit from the films. And also another fringe benefit, which I need to mention, since we have one narrative filmmaker, since I'm an actress, I always want to draw attention to that fact. And last year we had a Finnish filmmaker, so I'm into Nordic countries now. Ding, ding.
I'll remember that.
And I got cast in a female lead role in his feature film, which we just finished shooting in Spain. It's called The Last Wish, and it's a Finnish-Spanish co-production. It's an adaptation of Dostoevsky's Karamazov Brothers.
Wow.
And I play the two women, Krushenka and I forgot her name, Ivanova, the two combined. One moment my hair is blonde, one moment my hair is brunette, and then the costumes change. It's a story it's a modern day story of this guy whose preacher, the big theater director that he has worked with, tells him, I have a message for you before I die. And the message is, go to this monastery and read the 1,000-page novel of the brothers Karamazov. And he goes, and he is completely tortured because there are so many parallels in what is in the book and his own life.
Yeah.
And my character comes out of the page.
Wow.
So there you go. And it's black and white, and it's very much film noir style and everything, shot in Spain, in Santo Domingo de Silos. And in the fall, we go back and shoot another film together. So there you go, another fringe benefit of 10 years of this festival. So it's all these encounters, and that's why we also created at least 3 we have. And of course, we can come up with more if time permits. Networking events with the filmmakers. You're going to get, you probably already got the form to fill out.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity for us to talk with each other, because during the screenings at the Q&As, there isn't so much time. It's only like 10 minutes after each screening. Yeah. So there's my pitch.
Nora, just a little sidebar. Bernie Telsey, the great casting director, is my friend, and he will be at the screening. So if you've never,
please introduce. Yes.
Well, clearly you've never met Bernie. He's just one of the nicest mensches in the world.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. Well, this said, another fringe benefit, a year ago, 2 years ago, actually, in 2021, we had Eve Pomeranz, our casting director, who is on the jury this year as well. And she said, you are putting so much time into this festival. If you do quarter of what you are doing for this as an actor, you'll be working nonstop. And
wow, okay.
I'll introduce you to an agent. And of course, I have an agent, but she introduced me to another agent. And I've been auditioning nonstop. And this is amazing because some of these auditions come from film casting directors that have seen my work before, which tells me that if they're asking me back, then they must find something interesting. Otherwise, they would say, no, Nora, no, forget it. So anyway, so it's all about getting to know each other, forming a family, introducing one another to one another. So Julia, you are a member of NYWIFT.
Yeah.
New York Women in Film and Television.
Right, long time.
Yes, so I'm also a member, and we are partnering on the March 8th webinars, Zoom meeting with the women filmmakers with NYWIFT. And I asked Katie Chambers to maybe moderate your film for the Q&A, but unfortunately she's not available because they're also doing the Muse Awards, which are coming up right after the festival.
Right.
But she said that she will find another person from NYWIFT.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really cool because last year she did one of our filmmakers, and then that filmmaker ended up becoming a NYWIFT member. So again, another family situation. Yeah. So who else wants to add something? We have one.
I just wanted to say you're talking about the fringe benefits. And one of the fringe benefits for me, not just with this film, but the many documentaries I've done, is to be able to go to film festivals, especially film festivals outside of America, because I love to travel, I love to meet other people, and it's a great way to do it. As a friend of mine, another filmmaker said, Karin, we should have just gotten straight jobs and paid for our own trips. It would have been easier than, making these films just so we could travel. But that is one of the wonderful perks, really.
Yeah, but you would be so bored in a straight job.
Well, there you have it. I would be so bored in a straight job. So, yeah.
Bored and suffocated, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everything my film is against.
Right.
Yeah. So, Julia, Gary and you wrote the film together?
Well, it really wrote itself.
I'm an editor. I started in commercials and had an editorial house, and then was directing and now I more produce and edit. So I have a feature coming out. I have two other documentaries out right now. But
actually, they say with your documentaries, you know what they say, that the story is actually written in the editing room.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Very much so.
Because you have so much more footage and you can't hold back. You can't say, oh no, I wasn't planning to shoot this. You have to leave yourself open to what happens. And even in narratives, I'm sure Charlotte can chip in here, that you have written it, it's all storyboarded, and then it rains or it snows or whatever. And then you say, what am I going to do? I'm not going to cancel the shoot. I'm going to incorporate it into the situation. So maybe you can tell us on situations like that may have happened while filming Asphalt.
Well, we were shooting in the truck and had the driver there as well. And there's a lot of rules because a truck, when you're a truck driver that drives all over Europe or just Denmark or whatever, your truck is kind of your home. It's like you have all your things there, and they're very careful about their home. So you have to take off your shoes when you're going inside and stuff like that. So and we filmed in February, and it was snow, and we have to film every single scene where the truck is where they're driving. Michael took a driver's license for a truck, so he could drive it himself. So he's all the time he's also driving at the same time as acting.
Wow.
So it was a bit difficult to shoot it, and there's no space for all of us inside the truck. We could be maybe 4 or 5 in there, but no more than that. So most of the time I was behind the truck in another car watching, but we would lose the signal when they got too far. And sometimes it was just like, okay, I don't know what's going on inside, but I can't cut it. I just need to make it run. And we have some amazing things there. And also, I was in isolation because of the COVID. I took a test, and of course I maybe had COVID. We didn't know, but maybe. It turned out I didn't have. But because of that, the first week we were shooting, I was isolated in a car all the time, and then I couldn't see when he was driving. I wasn't outside, so I could only watch the screen, and I didn't notice that he was driving kind of into a tree, and he didn't see how big the truck was and stuff like that. So he was just driving into a tree. Everything was okay, but that's some of the things that happened. And also, well, as you said, there was snow. It wasn't supposed to snow in the script, but I actually liked the snow very much because I think it gave it something special that we could use in the film. So that was a good thing. And there is like in the window, it's broken, the window when you see out the window, and it wasn't broken when we started out. So that's also a thing that we kind of worked with, like used it to show that things are breaking down or something. So we used all those things happening to the truck, and the real truck owner, Madsen, of course, he wasn't that happy about it, but I think he understood that nothing was on purpose. But yeah, it was. I don't think he'll do a film again.
Not do a truck film.
No.
Well, there was this very interesting truck film that one of the first, I think it's the first feature film that Steven Spielberg did. I don't remember what it's called, but it was very, very scary. It's a little Volkswagen Beetle and a big truck, and the truck is like a beast and is following him all the way, and it's trying to corner him, and very, very interesting. I had seen it a long time ago, and I had been very much impressed, but it has nothing to do with your film, because in your film it's not about the truck, it's about the people in the truck, the person or persons that come in contact with the truck, whereas his was, he made the truck into a character in the film. That's very, very interesting. Right. I also have a question that I always like to ask. And how did you come to Socially Relevant Film Festival? What made you choose this festival, and how did you hear about us?
Film Fairway.
Yeah, Film Freeway. So that's good. So you read what it's about.
Yes.
You decided that,
Yes. I was very intrigued by your title of that festival, and I said, Einstein is a very socially relevant person. I think he was born for this festival. So,
Been dead for over 60 years, but still does ads for the Super Bowl for
oh
Verizon.
God,
So
yeah.
Yeah.
I think Paul Giamatti should be ashamed of himself
Yeah.
for taking that job. Awful. Yes. But
I know.
yeah.
Yeah. And Karin or Charlotte, do you want to share how you came here?
Same thing. I saw it on Film Freeway. I don't apply to a lot of those festivals, but when I saw the word socially relevant, I thought about all the characters in my film, like Allen Ginsberg and
Yeah.
Woody Guthrie and all of those. They're so much part of that socially relevant definition that I thought this has to be shown there.
Yeah.
So that was it. And here
Yeah.
I am. And thank
Yeah,
you very much
totally.
for choosing
And
us, by
the
the way.
name is strange, you know. A lot of people in the beginning were discouraging me. They said, oh, it's too long, it's too this, it's too that. What does it mean, socially relevant, and so on? And I felt, no, it's important to call it that because I don't want to call it a particular social issue because it's not about that. And it's not a militant or political festival, although a lot of the films are very political or militant or make a big statement. But it's more about the relevance to us today in society. What is relevant? What will make a change in our lives? What will improve our situation? So I thought socially relevant, and we ended up being able to trademark it.
Yeah.
It's a good
There are
title.
a few infringements out there. Every once in a while I see somebody calling their whatever, if it's in the entertainment business, they don't have a right because we have the trademark. But you know, I have to allow myself some time at some point and write letters to these people and say, hey, please don't use it anyway.
It's a good title.
Yeah, thank you. And Charlotte?
Yeah, I found it actually myself somewhere online, maybe Film Freeway, but I'm actually not sure. But I read about it, and then I contacted the producers and said, like, I think this festival would care about this film. I think it's the right place to show it, and it would be also, that's also very, when you're talking about the name for the festival, it's actually pretty important because it's also like I can put that on my film. You know,
Yeah.
it's socially relevant, and it's very important to me and to the well, my film is going to come to cinemas in Denmark in May, and I think it's very important that I can bring this message on a poster, that it's that kind of film. I think it will help the film. So
Yeah.
I'm very thankful.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's interesting because some people think, oh, I don't want to brand it like that. But on the other hand, no, au contraire, I would say, on the contrary, because there is an audience out there who is sick and tired of loud explosions and guns and violence and all that sort of stuff. That has its place maybe with some teenagers who want to get out their angst and aggressiveness or whatever. But when you are socially inclined and you want to hear real people's stories, you won't go to these films that will give you a headache in the end. I mean, a very expensive headache because you're paying a ticket to get a headache. You know?
But you have to sometimes. That's at least that's my idea of how I like to watch films and
Yeah.
listen to music. Sometimes you just need to try, like, watching a boring film or
Yes,
watching something
exactly.
you don't
To
like.
disconnect completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That also has its place. However, we felt like, okay, there is so much of that out there, But let's do something which is the alternative and offers people a platform if their films are less commercial and less, grand public, as they say in French, like the blockbuster general audience type of film. So branding it correctly helps the film, because then all the people who would want this kind of film would come. Yes, Gary, you wanted to say.
I was going to say, well, I think in our case, like you make an Einstein film and everyone goes, oh, there's been a million films about Einstein. Everyone knows Einstein. And he has been dead for over 60 years. But the point of our film was really, he wasn't just, every few years you still see Einstein was proven right because of his science, but he was also speaking out on political issues and all this stuff that he's also keeps being proven right about. So that's what this film is about. It's about, hey, he's smart that way, but he was also way ahead of his time this way. Take a look and listen. And so for us to be in a socially relevant context was very important, because that's what we're saying. It's an old historical figure, but when he's talking about race relations, even homosexuality and abortion back then, it's all things we're still grappling with, and we try and make the point that what he was saying back then, hey, take a look at it now. We haven't moved the needle. So socially relevant makes you go, it's not
and
about
it's interesting because it creates his persona. It completes it in a way. It's not cardboard, one aspect, but a real person. And that's what the film does. We have 3 more minutes. And if any one of you want to talk about their next project or future plans, I'd be happy to listen to that. Who wants to go?
Well, that's hard for me to think in terms of, since each of my films took 12 years.
Wow.
If you think in terms of doing a historical documentary around a real figure or figures, you better be prepared to have it own you. The research was enormous in Europe, in Berlin, all over this country, in archives. So for me to think in terms of spending another 12 years, unless I find myself a topic that's really only got 3 years in it, as opposed to 12 years, it's just, I haven't been able to find my way to the next thing in that regard.
Yeah. Well, you still have this to promote, so.
Yeah, he's got 3
I've
going.
got 3 going right now.
Yes, tell us about them.
In California, one that I'm going to Berlin to continue shooting next month, and a feature film that we're finalizing our distribution deal. That's a Native American project.
Wow.
So I do, like, I try and keep myself busy all over the place. And I have 3 more after that are in development. So yeah.
That is so amazing. Yeah.
I think I would echo what
Karin,
Julia said. I would echo what my films take between 8 and 10 years. I love them, but like I said, I do most of it myself. It's without money. It's exhausting, and I love it, but how many films do you want to make that take, or can you make, that take 8 to 10 years? So I'm looking forward to bringing this out more in the world, but starting another film, you have to really think long and hard about that.
Yeah.
I'm not hands-on where equipment is concerned at all. My favorite DP is Vicente Franco, who is an Academy Award nominated DP, and we've worked together also for 25 years, so that it's enormously expensive to do a film like Einstein. And if I hadn't, through pluck and luck, found my way to he who I call my billionaire benefactor, I could never have completed this film. Never. I mean, he just threw a lot of money at it. And I'm still $52,000 in debt to finish Einstein.
Wow.
So my wonderful distributor, recently in talking to him, I said that documentary filmmaking is a very expensive hobby. And he concurred, and he's taken to telling filmmakers who approach first run features with a film, he uses a phrase like, well, you're not going to make much money. This is a very expensive hobby. So, yeah.
Well, thank
And
God for
exhausting,
dedicated people like you, yourselves.
Yeah.
Otherwise, where would the festival be? We wouldn't have any films to show.
But
Nora,
it's
this is the reward. This is the reward for all the hard work. So thank you.
So, Charlotte, do you want to tell us about your next project?
Yeah, I'm actually working on 2 features right now. I'm writing by myself this time. And one of them, I went to the Torino Film Lab with. So it's called The Secret, and well, there's also some plot twists that I can't reveal, but it's a story that's testing how far a mother will go for her son. Like to keep him close, to care for him, and to be able to love him. So it's also a personal story. Asphalt took a couple of years to make. When I started, I didn't have kids. Now I have 3 of them. So yeah,
Wow.
so something happens. It also takes some time to make a narrative. But yeah, so that's what I'm working on right now.
Cool. Thank you all very much.
Thank
We've
you.
kind of gone over 2 minutes from our time, but this is YouTube. People can tune in whenever they want and can tune out whenever they don't want. So it's up to them. I am so happy to have had the opportunity to talk to you. And hopefully I see you all at the festival. And we'll have some real person-to-person time.
Good.
And thank you, and all the best to all of your projects. Maybe I'll run the ticketing and festival information one more time so people know. I forgot to say that we have still $7 early bird tickets and $100 very, very cheap all access pass that includes the VIP 3 deal, festival opening, films, and reception of the opening night at $50. So already half of it is gone to that, and the rest you can use for the entire festival. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for those who listened and made comments. We didn't get many comments. They were shy listeners, but it's okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Nora.